I'm Emily, a 33-year-old who loves both cooking and eating. My husband, Michael, who is 2 years older than me, also loves to eat. We met at a morning buffet. It was an all-you-can-eat and drink for $6, and as a big eater, I went there every weekend. That's where Michael, who also came every weekend, approached me. He was quite handsome, and despite eating a lot, he was slim, which I had always envied. I said to him, "Michael, you eat so much but don't gain weight." Then he laughed and said, "Well, I barely eat anything 6 days a week because I'm broke." He told me, "Emily, you eat as much as I do but you're still slim." So I said, "I run in the park every morning and evening for this meal," and our conversation took off from there, leading to weekend buffet dates. After dating for 3 years and when the topic of marriage came up, I thought we were a perfect match in terms of personality. But there was one thing that worried me. Michael's salary was quite low, as he mentioned about his broke lifestyle. Honestly, it was about the same as mine, working as a clerk in a small company. If we combined our salaries, we could just manage as a couple, but if we had a child, it seemed impossible, which worried me. However, Michael, being carefree, said, "It'll be fine. There are families with less income and 2 kids. Worst case, we can borrow from my dad. Indeed, my parents would also probably help us out for their grandchild." So, with such wishful thinking, we decided to marry, not having a ceremony or reception. However, it didn't take a month to realize that our financial planning was too optimistic. Renting a new apartment involved not just rent, but also a security deposit, key money, brokerage fees, and moving expenses. For furniture, which we had previously made do with cheap items, Michael ordered a set costing several $1,000s without consulting me. We had to buy new curtains because the sizes didn't match. We also had to repurchase all our dishes after Michael accidentally broke them during the moving. Our new home was indeed lovely, but I was anxious about how much would be deducted from our account next month. Most purchases were on credit, and though they were paid from Michael's account, we agreed to split all marriage-related expenses. So the first bill after our marriage made me tremble. We needed to cut back on our expenses. We agreed to set up a joint account, each contributing a fixed amount monthly for utilities and essential marital expenses. And to discuss if funds fell short. But there wasn't much to cut back on. As we both worked full-time, we were only home 1 or 2 days a week, so our utility bills were already low. I switched to a budget cell phone plan, but Michael insisted on staying with a major carrier. For clothes, I shopped at fast fashion and thrift stores, but Michael refused. Even for cosmetics, I tried making my own, but Michael started ordering expensive hair growth products online. And he even tried to pay for them from our joint account. I complained, "Isn't it strange that we have to pay for your hair growth treatment from our joint account?" But Michael argued, "What are you talking about? It'd be embarrassing for you too if your husband was bald, right? So, it's an issue we should tackle together." There was no choice but to cut down on our food expenses. I utilized the internet for budget recipes, compared flyers from nearby supermarkets to shop at the cheapest one. Even if it meant dragging a shopping cart and walking 30 minutes, and took advantage of evening sales. I also borrowed wisdom from my grandmother, who was frugal since she was born in the early 1900s. Thanks to these efforts, our monthly food expenses, which were nearly $500, were reduced to $300. Of course, this was while still considering nutrition and taste. I was proud of myself as a competent wife, but then, hey, what's this $295.61? It looks like it was withdrawn at the end of the month. Michael, who happened to check our joint account, asked me, "Oh, that's for our food expenses for this month." I had been paying up front and withdrawing the total from our joint account at the end of the month. No way, $300 for a month? That's right. Isn't it great? Michael looked at me, who had just replied with a bit of pride, with disbelief. "What are you talking about? Why does it cost $300? What do you mean? $300 for a couple is quite low. No way, it should be more like $200 at most." I was so flabbergasted, I ended up staring at Michael as if to bore holes into his face. Sure, maybe it's possible if you're a full-time homemaker, diligent, and getting things like vegetables and eggs from your parents' farm. But I work full-time and my parents aren't farmers, so they can't send us anything. Honestly, I'm so exhausted every day from resisting the urge to take shortcuts with ready-made meals and still cooking after a long day at work. Moreover, Michael eats the amount of 2 men and even tries to buy snacks from our joint account saying, "I need sweets because I'm working hard for our life together." I've lost count of how many times I've snapped at him, saying, "Hey, our house isn't an all-you-can-eat buffet." Still, keeping our monthly food expenses to $300 should be commended, right? It might seem trivial, but my feelings for Michael plummeted rapidly. Seeing me like this, Michael apparently thought of getting his mom to scold me for being wrong. Out of the blue, he suggested visiting his parents' house over the weekend. I was actually hoping his mom, Susan, would give him a piece of her mind, so I agreed readily. Susan has been a full-time homemaker for 37 years, a real pro. She's particularly good at turning one ingredient into a variety of dishes. For example, with one radish, she uses the leaves for toppings or fillings, the skin for stir-fry, and the flesh for stews, leaving almost nothing to waste. Before we got married, I used to visit his parents' house and learn a lot from her. When we arrived at his parents' house, Susan immediately served dinner. Though she went a bit fancy knowing we were coming, it was her usual budget-friendly cooking: soy pulp burgers, egg and seafood stick omelette with sauce, and pickled vegetable peels. As we enjoyed the delicious meal, Michael predictably complained, "Mom, spending $300 a month on food is way too much. Tell Emily off, will you?" When I explained the situation to Susan, who was taken aback by Michael's sudden remark, she said, "Isn't $300 normal for a couple? I could save more as a dedicated homemaker, but Emily works every day. She's doing well enough." But Michael wouldn't budge. "Mom, don't defend her. I used to cook when I lived alone, and I spent only $100 a month." I said, "That's impossible," thinking there's no way that could be true. Then Michael started fiddling with his phone and said, "Look, here's the proof," showing me his budgeting app with a smug face. It was indeed less than $100 a month. See? Even I, a man, can save that much. But hey, aren't you just buying stuff like bean sprouts, instant noodles, and the like? I sighed. Sure, if you're eating super cheap stuff like 19-cent bags of bean sprouts, fish sausages for $1.68, 5 packs of instant noodles for $1.52, and 78-cent bread all the time, even going to an all-you-can-eat buffet every weekend would keep you under $100 a month. Susan was also astonished, saying, "No wonder you always gorge on meat when you come here." I'm appalled. His dad, Peter, sided with me, saying, "Emily is making balanced meals with affordable ingredients. You, who think cooking is just about filling your belly, have no right to act all high and mighty." But Michael, with his pride hurt, didn't say anything, just wolfed down Susan's cooking and stormed out. "Sorry, dear, he just doesn't understand how hard it is to be a housewife," Susan apologized to me. Peter even suggested, why not have him stay at our place for a month, doing all the shopping and cooking? He might understand how tough it is to make balanced meals affordably while working. But Susan was doubtful, saying, "But you know, if he doesn't like it, he'll just run away like he did just now." That's it. I have a great idea. I shared my plan with Peter and Susan. It was to send Michael to my grandmother's place. My grandma, nearly 90, is a tough woman who survived World War II. She raised 5 children, including my mom, in poverty, so she's ingrained with a luxury is the enemy mentality. She lives alone near my parents' house now, still spry, and loves teaching others. Whenever I'm stumped with menu planning and call her, she's always eager to share ideas for dirt-cheap meals. She might just be able to straighten Michael out. Peter and Susan agreed enthusiastically. When I called Grandma, she was overjoyed, saying, "I've been bored lately. This will be fun." The next evening, Michael and I went to my grandma's place. Michael, learning of my plan only upon arrival, protested, "Why do I have to learn this stuff?" But Grandma provoked him, saying, "Modern men are all talk. You must be bossing Emily around, thinking you can't handle budgeting." That seemed to rile him up. "Piece of cake," he declared, agreeing to visit her place from the next evening. But Grandma put him in his place, saying, "What about breakfast? You might as well live here," and he reluctantly agreed to stay with her. A week later, I got a tearful call from Michael. "Emily, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I've reflected on it, please help me. From what Michael told me, it sounded like my grandmother really gave him a hard time. When he threw away the water that has been used to wash rice, she scolded him, "What are you throwing away? That can be used to clean oily dishes and for wiping down surfaces, even for blanching vegetables." If he tried to throw away the roots of spring onions, she would strike like lightning, saying, "Plant them in the soil. They'll be edible in a few months, don't you know that?" When he brought home store-bought salad dressing, she yelled at him, "You can make it cheaper with oil and vinegar. Anyway, we don't need fancy dressings." If he said he wanted to eat meat, she'd scold him, "Tofu has protein too. Don't be extravagant." And so, it seems he was lectured like this every day. He was also put in charge of buying groceries, so he learned firsthand how much money he had been carelessly spending on food. I didn't know. Meat and fish are that expensive. He never knew the prices since he only ate them at home when he was living alone. Michael caved after just a week, but I had anticipated he wouldn't last a month and made him sign a contract to pay me $1,000 if he didn't. Since Michael couldn't afford that, he reluctantly tried hard to last a month at my grandmother's. Since then, Michael not only stopped complaining about food expenses, but also started buying clothes at fast fashion stores and switched to a budget cell phone plan. It's hard to get a raise, so we need to save in areas like this. We want to have kids soon, he said, becoming very positive about saving money. Well, his real motivation seems to be, I don't want to be sent to that grandma's place again. But he still hasn't learned about cleaning and laundry, so I'm planning, somewhat cruelly, to send him back to my grandmother's for training once we have a child.